At 1,731 hours on November 4, 1944, squadron leader Prince Burbridge climbed into his Mosquito night fighter at RAF Swanington as German radar emissions flared across his navigator's display from occupied Europe. At just 23 years old, the former conscientious objector had already flown 47 combat missions in 8 months. Bomber Command had lost 217 heavy bombers to German night fighters in October alone. Flight Lieutenant Bill Skelton settled into the navigator's seat beside him, while the radar operator adjusted the Serrate detector, a modified AI Mark IV radar set. It was designed to pick up transmissions from German Liechtenstein radar at ranges of up to 80 miles, but tonight the display showed something unusual: multiple contacts, far more than Skelton had seen in weeks. The situation had deteriorated since September. German night fighters were slipping undetected into RAF bomber streams, positioning themselves beneath Lancasters and Halifaxes using upward-firing cannons known as Schreckmusik. Bomber crews never saw the attack coming. During the Battle of Berlin, Bomber Command lost 574 aircraft, most to night fighters. The ground crews at Swanington knew the numbers. Every night they watched mosquitoes lift into the darkness, and some never came back. Number 100 Group had been formed specifically to counter this threat, fielding 7 squadrons of Mosquito night fighters equipped with electronic detection gear. Their task was straightforward but dangerous: hunt the hunters. Locate German night fighters by their own radar emissions and destroy them before they could reach the bomber streams. Since December 1943, the group had claimed 257 German aircraft destroyed, though the cost was steep: 70 Mosquitoes lost. Burbridge started the Merlin engines, the wooden airframe shuttering as power-built. He had joined 85 Squadron in July 1943 after a year as an instructor. His first tour yielded 1 probable victory and 1 damaged enemy aircraft. Then he was paired with Skelton, and everything changed. Skelton's mastery of the Serrate system gave them a decisive advantage. They opened their account in February with a Messerschmitt 410 over the channel. By April, Burbridge had 5 confirmed victories. By October, 14. Tonight they were flying a hostile intruder patrol southeast of Cologne. The briefing was explicit: Bomber Command was striking Bochum, and German night fighters would scramble from bases across the Ruhr, Bonn, Dusseldorf, Cologne, and beyond. When they did, the mosquitoes would already be waiting. Would Burbridge's tactics work tonight? Please hit the like button, it helps us share these untold war stories, and subscribe for more. Back to Burbridge. The Mosquito lifted off at 1,731 hours, crossed the English coast at 1,800 feet, descended to evade coastal radar, then climbed to 15,000 feet over Belgium. Skelton monitored his screens as the AI Mark X provided forward coverage out to 8 miles, while the Serrate detector scanned for enemy radar emissions ahead. Somewhere in the darkness over Germany, German night fighters were taking off. Pilots who had survived dozens of missions, men credited with 10, 20, even 30 kills. They had altitude, numbers, and experience hunting bombers, but tonight, for the first time, they were the quarry. By 1904 hours, they were over German territory when Skelton's Serrate display showed a contact 4 miles out, crossing from starboard to port. Burbridge turned in behind it. The system worked by intercepting emissions from German Liechtenstein radar, which broadcast on frequencies between 490 and 600 MHz when searching for bombers. Serrate provided bearing but not range, forcing Skelton to judge distance by changes in signal strength. As they closed, he called corrections: left 2 degrees, steady, contact strengthening. At 1,500 feet, Burbridge caught sight of a dark silhouette against a darker sky, confirmed through night binoculars as a Junkers 88. The twin-engine fighter carried a crew of 3: pilot, radar operator, and rear gunner, and was armed with 420mm cannons and multiple machine guns, with upward-firing Schreckmusik installed on some variants. The German aircraft was actively hunting, its Liechtenstein SN2 radar sweeping the sky ahead in search of bomber echoes, unaware that a Mosquito was locked onto its tail. German radar looked forward, not behind. The Luftwaffe had learned of Serrate in September 1943 when No. 141 Squadron began operations, prompting warnings from high command and orders to limit radar use. But with bomber streams filling the sky, crews had little choice. Without radar, they were blind. Burbridge closed to 1,000 feet as the Junkers maintained a steady westward course, still searching, still oblivious. He armed the 4 Hispano cannons mounted in the Mosquito's belly, each loaded with 175 rounds, 700 in total. Ammunition discipline was critical. Long bursts wasted rounds and drew attention, while short, precise bursts were doctrine. At 800 feet, the Junkers began a gentle turn. Skelton adjusted the heading, and they stayed tucked in behind, matching the maneuver. The German pilot was following ground control instructions. Bomber Command's main force was still 20 minutes from the target, and night fighters were positioning early to establish patrol lines. Burbridge closed to 400 feet. Through the gunsight he could see the Junkers clearly now, the dark crosses on the fuselage, the exhausts glowing faint red. He centered the sight on the port engine, consistent with his philosophy since February: aim for engines, not the cockpit, disable the machine, give the crew a chance. Skelton understood and never questioned it. They had discussed it once. Both were Christians, determined to stop the killing machine rather than deliberately kill the men inside it. The Junkers held its course as Burbridge's finger tightened on the trigger. A 3-second burst, that was the plan. Hit the engine, observe the result, adjust if necessary. Then Skelton's voice cut in over the intercom: new contact, 2 miles out, crossing left to right, bearing similar to their own. Close, too close. Another German night fighter was hunting the same airspace. What moments earlier had seemed empty sky was suddenly crowded. Burbridge made his decision in 2 seconds. First target first. He squeezed the trigger, and all 4 Hispano cannons fired. Tracer rounds arced into the Junkers, the burst lasting exactly 3 seconds. Shells ripped into the port engine, and fire erupted instantly, orange flames streaming back along the nacelle. The Junkers rolled hard to starboard and dived away as Burbridge pulled up sharply to avoid debris. Skelton confirmed the kill at 19:06 hours. The Junkers vanished from sight at 3,000 feet, trailing fire. They did not see it strike the ground, but later German records confirmed that a Junkers 88G from Nachtjagdgeschwader 1 crashed near the patrol area that night. The pilot bailed out. The radar operator and gunner were killed. There was no time to linger. Skelton's second contact was closing fast, now at 1 mile. Burbridge turned northwest, searching as the serrate detector provided bearing only, the signal weak and intermittent. The German pilot was likely using radar sparingly. The Luftwaffe had adapted since serrate first appeared, with some crews running silent until the last moment and others shutting down between sweeps. At 19:14 hours, Skelton regained a solid contact 800 yards dead ahead at the same altitude. Burbridge increased power slightly, the Merlin engines responding as airspeed climbed to 280 knots, and within 3 minutes the Mosquito was rapidly gaining on the target. Visual confirmed. Another Junkers 88, different variant. This one showed distinct aerials, the longer SN2 radar array, more recent production. The aircraft flew straight and level. No evasive action, no indication they detected pursuit. Burbridge settled into firing position, 600 foot back, slightly below the textbook approach. Skeleton monitored screens, no new contacts. They were clear, but something felt different. The Einers was heading toward Unhangeler Airfield. The base sat 15 miles south of Cologne, major night fighter station, home to 2nd Staff, Nachtjagd 1. More than 40 fighters operated from that field. If they got close, the situation would change fast. Burbridge, close to 400 feet, placed the sight on the starboard engine this time. Variation mattered. Predictability could be fatal. He fired. 3-second burst. 50 rounds from each cannon. 200 total. The shells hammered into the engine and wing. Rout. Metal tore. Fuel ignited. The entire starboard wing erupted in flames. The Einers pitched nose down violently, rolling left. The pilot was fighting for control, but physics had already decided. Secondary explosions rippled through the fuselage. At 1917, the aircraft inverted completely in dove. Skelton tracked it to impact. Crashed in open farmland east of their position. No survivors. 2 German night fighters destroyed in 11 minutes. Burbridge had used approximately 150 rounds total. 550 remained. Skeleton's voice came through the headset again. Multiple contacts. Range varying, 3 miles to 5 miles, different bearings, all converging on one area. Unhangeler Airfield. The Germans were forming up, preparing to intercept the bomber stream, and Burbridge was flying straight toward them. At 19:23, they reached the area, southeast of Cologne. Below, scattered lights marked Unhangeler Airfield. Skelton counted 6 distinct radar contacts within 3 mi, all orbiting. The Germans were stacking. Standard procedure. Night fighters would circle a designated point, waiting for ground control to vector them toward bomber streams. Height separation kept them safe. 500 feet between each aircraft. Burbridge reduced power, descended to 14,000 feet. The orbital pattern was clear. Now, clockwise rotation approximately 2 m diameter. He made a choice that would have seemed insane to most pilots. He joined the pattern. The Mosquito slipped into the circuit between 2 contacts. Skelton monitored spacing. 1,500 feet ahead was a German night fighter. 1,800 foot behind was another. They were flying in formation with the enemy. The Germans had no visual reference, no way to distinguish friend from foe in absolute darkness. Their radar looked outward for bombers, not at the aircraft next to them. For 90 seconds, they orbited with the hunters. Skeleton screen showed the pattern shifting as more fighters joined. 7 contacts now. 8. The Luftwaffe was massing for the intercept. Somewhere to the west, RAF bomber streams were approaching their turning point. Within 30 minutes, German night fighters would peel off and attack. Unless they never made it to the bombers. Burbridge selected the contact ahead, range closing slowly as he added slight power. The orbital pattern meant they were all flying similar speeds, 230 knots. He needed to close without alerting the aircraft behind him. Smooth, gradual. At 1928, visual contact. Messer's 110 twin-engine heavier than the Junkers variants. This was a dedicated night fighter. No bombs, all guns. The Bf-110 carried 4 forward-firing cannons, 2 upward-firing Schramm Musk, 1 rear defensive gun. Crew of 3. It was the Luftwaffe's primary night interceptor since 1940. Experienced pilots preferred its more stable gun platform than the Junkers. Burbridge closed to 500 feet. The Messers held position in the orbit. Perfect spacing, professional flying. This crew knew what they were doing, which meant they were dangerous. Had to be eliminated before they reached the bomber stream. At 400 feet, he could see the aircraft clearly through the gun sight, the twin tail booms, the glazed nose for the radar operator, exhaust stacks glowing. He aimed for the port engine. Fired. 3 seconds. The cannons hammered. Tracer rounds straight forward. Hits immediate. The port engine exploded. Fuel spray ignited across the wing. The Messmet rolled violently left, dropping out of the pattern. Burbridge pulled up and right, staying clear of the formation. The burning fighter fell away, spiraling. It impacted at 1930. German records confirm Bf-110 from 2nd Staffel NJG-1 crashed at Bonn Hangar. Pilot killed, 2 crew bailed out, 3 German night fighters destroyed in 27 minutes. But the formation knew now. Skeleton screen showed the pattern breaking. Aircraft scattering. Ground control was transmitting warnings. Intruder in the area. All fighters take evasive action. The element of surprise was gone, and they were still over enemy territory with hostile fighters all around them. One contact wasn't running. One contact was turning toward them. Skelton called. The contact. Range 1,200 yards, closing fast. Bearing 090. The German pilot had seen the explosion, seen the mosquito silhouette against the flames, was coming to investigate or engage. At night, 1,200 yards was close range. Too close. Burbridge turned hard into the contact. The mosquito banked 60 degrees. If the German expected them to run, this would surprise him. Night fighting was geometry, angles, closure rates, energy management. The pilot who controlled the merge controlled the fight. At 800 yards, Skeleton got radar. Return. Confirmed contact. Junkers 88, the 4th type tonight. Different again from the others. Possibly a G variant, the newest model, better radar, more firepower. These aircraft were becoming harder to surprise. The Luftwaffe was learning. 600 yards. Both aircraft were converging. Combined closure rate over 400 knots. Burbridge had seconds to decide. Head-on pass or break-off. Head-on meant mutual vulnerability. Both aircraft firing, both exposed. But breaking off meant giving the German control, letting him dictate terms. He held course. At 400 YD, the Junkers opened fire. Tracer rounds arced past the Mosquito's port wing. Close. The German gunner had them in sight. Burbridge waited. 300 yards, 200. The Junkers filled the gun sight. He fired. 4 cannons. Full burst. 5 seconds. Every remaining round in a concentrated stream. The Junkers staggered. Multiple hits across the nose and cockpit. The glazed bombardier position shattered. One engine caught fire, then the other. The aircraft, pitched up sharply, rolled inverted, fell away burning. Impact at 1940. German records show Junkers 88G from 9 and Staffel NJG-1 crashed near the Rhine. All crew killed. For German night fighters destroyed in 37 minutes. Burbridge had fired 200 rounds on the fourth target. Total expenditure for the night, approximately 400 rounds. 300 remained, but they were spread across 4 magazines. Not enough for sustained engagement. Skelton reported clear scopes, no immediate contacts. The other German fighters had scattered after the warnings. Some were landing, others repositioning. The orbital pattern was broken. For now, the immediate threat was reduced, but fuel state was becoming critical. They'd been airborne over 2 hours. The Mosquito carried enough for approximately 4 hours total, but operating over Germany meant reserves. Burbridge turned northwest, heading for home. Behind them, 4 German night fighters burned on German soil. 4 crews who would never intercept another bomber. 4 aircraft that would never kill another Lancaster crew. The mathematics were simple, brutal, necessary. As they crossed back over Belgium, Skelton made notes for the combat report. Times, locations, aircraft types, ammunition expended. It was 1952. They'd be back at Swanington by 2,100 hours if weather held. But something bothered Skelton. The detector showed intermittent returns behind them. Weak signals. Could be friendly. Could be enemy. At this range, over 2 miles, identification was uncertain. They were exhausted, low on ammunition, heading home. The logical choice was to maintain course, get out of enemy airspace, land safely, report success. But the signal was growing stronger. The signal strengthened, range under 2 miles. Skeleton refined the bearing. It was tracking them, matching their course change when they turned northwest. Either extremely disciplined friendly escort or German night fighter looking for revenge at night over occupied territory. Assumptions killed. Burbridge reduced altitude to 12,000 feet, descended into cloud layer. The Mosquito disappeared into gray darkness. No visual reference. Flying on instruments. If the contact was using radar, clouds provided no protection. But if it was visual pursuit, they'd lost him. 3 minutes in cloud. Skeleton watched his screens. The contact faded. Range opening. Whoever it was had lost them or broken off. They climbed back to 13,000 foot, emerged into clear air. Stars overhead, scattered clouds below. The Dutch coast was 40 m ahead. At 2008, they crossed the enemy coastline. Flak batteries at a mutant opened fire, but the Mosquito was too high, too fast. Black puffs burst below them. They were clear over the North Sea now. Friendly territory in 20 minutes. Skeleton ran systems check. Fuel showed 200 gall. Enough for another hour if needed. Hydraulics normal, engines normal, no damage from the engagement. The Mosquito had performed perfectly. 4 targets, 4 kills, 0 hits taken. The wooden airframe's advantage was speed and maneuverability. They had used both tonight. Burbridge's hands were steady on the controls, but his mind was processing. 4 German night fighters in 37 minutes. Most crews got 1 victory per tour. Some never got any. They destroyed 4 in a single sortie. The implications were significant for the squadron, for the group, for Bomber Command. But he also knew the cost. 4 German pilots dead, others wounded, families who would receive telegrams. He'd aimed for engines where possible, but the 4th engagement had been different. He'd no choice. The reality of war was unavoidable. Stop the machine. Save the bomber crews. That was the mission. At 2021, the English coast appeared ahead. Norfolk RAF Swanington set 15 miles inland. They'd been airborne 2 hours 50 minutes. Skeleton radioed tower. Mosquito returning. 4 victories claimed. Permission to land. The controller's voice came back immediately. Cleared straight in. Runway 27, wind light. Weather clear. The airfield lights showed at 2028. Burbridge entered the pattern. Reduced power. Extended flaps. Landing gear down. 3 green lights confirmed. The Mosquito settled onto the runway at 2032 hours. Smooth touchdown. They rolled out, turned onto the taxiway, proceeded to dispersal. Ground crew were waiting, always waiting. They counted aircraft out, counted them back. Tonight, one Mosquito returned with extraordinary news. The crew chief Approached as engines shut down. 4 kills. The word spread immediately through the ground personnel. 4 in one night. No one had done that. Burbridge and Skelton climbed out, filled out initial combat reports. Times, positions, aircraft types, ammunition used. The intelligence officer would debrief them fully. Tomorrow, get detailed accounts, correlate with German records eventually. But tonight, preliminary. Claims stood. 1 Bf-110 destroyed, 3 Ju-88s destroyed. Other Mosquitoes from 100 Group had scored that night. 3 Bf-110s total claimed across all squadrons. But Burbridge and Skelton's tally was unprecedented. What they didn't know was that this single mission would change everything. By November 5th, word reached Bomber Command Headquarters. Air Chief Marshal Arthur Harris reviewed the report personally. For confirmed kills, single crew, single sortie, 200 rounds per kill. Average. The efficiency was remarkable. More importantly, the tactic worked. Serrate-equipped Mosquitoes could hunt German night fighters in their own airspace, disrupt their operations. Before they reached bomber streams, within a week, 100 Group revised training protocols. Burbridge and Skelton were asked to brief other crews, explain the technique, how to join enemy formations undetected, when to engage, how to manage ammunition. The orbital pattern infiltration became doctrine. Other squadrons implemented it immediately. The impact showed in November's statistics. Bomber Command lost 152 aircraft that month, down from 217 in October. German night fighter effectiveness decreased 28%. 100 Group claimed 63 enemy aircraft destroyed. Burbridge and Skelton accounted for 7 of those. Their total stood at 17 by month's end. The Germans noticed. Luftwaffe High Command issued new directives. Night fighters were ordered to reduce radar use to minimum. Some crews refused, knowing it meant flying blind. Others complied and their kill rates dropped. The Serrate system had created a tactical dilemma. Use radar and risk detection. Don't use radar and miss bombers entirely. By December, the phenomenon had a name. Mosquito Schreck, Mosquito Terror. German night fighter pilots reported constant fear during landing approaches. The most vulnerable moment. Gear down, flaps, extended, slow, low, no maneuverability. Mosquito intruders would orbit airfields for hours waiting. When German fighters came home exhausted after missions, the hunters struck. Burbridge and Skelton continued operations through December. On the 12th, they destroyed a Bf-110 and Ju-88 near Essen. December 23, another Bf-110 near Koblenz. Their victory total reached 20 by year's end, one more. Then Group Captain John Cunningham, Cat's Eyes Cunningham, the legendary night fighter ace. Burbridge's former squadron commander, January 2, 1945. Final mission, southwest of Ludwigshafen. Bomber Command was attacking oil refineries. Burbridge and Skelton flew escort. At 2,215 hours, Skelton got contact. 4 miles closing. Visual confirmed. Ju-88. Standard approach. 400 feet 3-second burst. Port engine fire. The aircraft crashed. All crew killed. Victory number 21. The top-scoring British and Commonwealth night fighter duo of the war, surpassing even Cunningham's record. Air Vice Marshal Addison, commander of 100 Group, sent personal congratulations. Distinguished Service Order, bar added, awarded to both men. Yet the true accomplishment wasn't the decorations, nor the record, it was the arithmetic. 21 German night fighters destroyed meant 21 crews that never reached the bomber streams. Each German night fighter averaged 6 bomber kills per year. Simple calculation. Burbridge and Skelton saved roughly 126 bomber crews, 1,260 RAF lives. The unseen predator had become visible, and the Germans realized it because the proof blazed across their airfields every night. By March 1945, Burbridge left 85 Squadron, posted to the Night Fighter Leaders School as commanding officer. The war in Europe had only 2 months remaining, but his combat tour was complete. Skelton remained with the squadron briefly before his own posting. Their partnership had lasted 13 months, 21 victories, 0 losses. After Germany surrendered, both men made the same choice. They left the RAF, pursued theology. Burbridge attended Oxford, history degree first, then theology. Skelton went to Cambridge, Trinity Hall. Both felt called to ministry. The war had shown them death, now they wanted to show people life. Burbridge joined Scripture Union in 1948, youth ministry. He spent decades working with students, holiday programs, sixth form courses, rarely spoke about the war. When pressed, he said one thing: I aimed for engines, not cockpits. Wanted to stop the machine, not kill the men. His logbook stayed in a drawer, his medals in a box. Skelton was ordained as an Anglican priest, became chaplain at Clare College, Cambridge, later rector of Market Harborough. His wartime service rarely came up in sermons. He focused on reconciliation, forgiveness, the things that mattered after the fighting ended. 100 Group disbanded December 17, 1945. 7 months after victory in Europe, the electronic warfare techniques developed by the group became standard practice. Post-war air forces around the world adopted SAR-8 principles, radar detection, electronic countermeasures. The invisible hunt had changed night fighting forever. The Mosquito remained in RAF service until 1951, longer elsewhere. But the aircraft's legacy wasn't its longevity, it was versatility. Bomber, fighter, reconnaissance, intruder. One airframe, multiple roles. Wooden construction that outperformed metal rivals. De Havilland's gamble on an unarmed fast bomber evolved into one of the war's most effective aircraft. Burbridge and Skelton remained close friends until Skelton's death in 2003. They occasionally met, talked about theology, family, rarely about November 4, 1944. That night belonged to history, to the RAF, to the 1,260 bomber crews who returned because 21 German night fighters did not. Brance Burbridge died November 1, 2016, aged 95. By then his medals had been sold to pay for care. His family needed the money. The nation had moved on, but the record remained. 21 victories. Highest-scoring British night fighter ace. The invisible hunter the Germans could not believe existed until the evidence blazed across their skies. Stories like Burbridge and Skelton remind us that innovation wins wars. SAR-8 radar, intruder tactics, electronic warfare. These were not merely technical improvements, they were force multipliers that saved lives. Every night fighter destroyed meant bomber crews returned home. If this story inspired you, please like this video and subscribe for more untold war stories. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Thank you for watching and helping preserve these stories.